I think that if you're actually an individual and you're using Bitcoin right now, you're one of the early pioneers. If you keep it, you'll be insanely rich. If you take money off the top or you sell it, then you'll remember that you used to have billions of dollars of Bitcoin, but you sold it for Ferrari, and that will be unfortunate. I can take a dying hotel or a dying restaurant chain and I can make it worth $1 billion just using Bitcoin as digital capital. And on the margin, it's more likely to work than not. Most of the crypto OGs that have been in the business for 15 years are staring right at the thing and ignoring it or rejecting it as it's happening. Right? That's the irony to me.
In this compelling interview, Michael Saylor shares his forward-looking vision of Bitcoin's future, how it will transform global banking, institutions, and capital markets. He explains why Bitcoin will underpin financial settlements at the highest levels, why individuals who hold early will be rewarded, and how equity and credit markets worth trillions could be rebuilt on a Bitcoin standard. Saylor also discusses the evolution of Bitcoin through layers like Lightning and potential new use cases in security, identity, and digital commerce. Stick around until the end, because Michael reveals the underappreciated dynamics that even many Bitcoin veterans are missing, and why this moment could be the most pivotal yet for Bitcoin's future. Also guys, if you like our cryptocurrency content, please remember to like and subscribe to stay up to date. Now, over to Michael.
You wrote The Mobile Wave. It is 14 years old now, so getting close to 15 years old now. And you were able to kind of foresee, the future and how integral mobile technology would be to our lives at that time. So taking the same kind of forward-looking approach to Bitcoin 15 years from now, what do you anticipate the average person's interaction with Bitcoin will look like? Are they engaging still directly with the protocol at all? Are they engaging with layers of Bitcoin, or are most people using some sort of Bitcoin bank for custody? What does that landscape look like?
I think that there are 400 million companies in the world, and there's 40,000 big banks in the world. So I think that, and of course there are lots of institutions. So I think that as Bitcoin is integrated into the fabric of the global economy, I think you'll see, right? How about 1,000 banks that are actually trading peer-to-peer with each other? I think that the banks, the custodians, megacorps, I see a world where every major bank and every major tech corp, maybe a Google and an Apple and a Microsoft, they're all settling or moving large amounts of Bitcoin around on the base layer. Governments, you would think that the biggest users of the base layer would be Apple and Google and the US and Bank of China and Bank of Russia and Bank of England. To the extent that any of those things exist, right? If the nation exists, if the bank exists, you would think that Citi would be moving billions of dollars of Bitcoin to B of A, to Wells Fargo, to Santander, to Deutsche Bank, to Swiss Bank, to Bank of Japan. I would think that Microsoft will move billions and tens of billions of Bitcoin between Microsoft and Google in order to work through some, technical issue. I think I think Visa and any of the payment networks, they'll have massive amounts of Bitcoin. So I think that if you're actually an individual and you're using Bitcoin right now, you're one of the early pioneers. If you keep it, you'll be insanely rich. If you take money off the top or you sell it, then you'll remember that you used to have billions of dollars of Bitcoin, but you sold it for Ferrari, and that will be unfortunate. But and so I think that there'll be some OGs that will still be heavily engaged. But I think ultimately, the base network is going to have 10 to 100,000 big financial institutions that are going to be settling large amounts. And I think the network's going to scale in the layer 2s and the layer 3s. I think the Lightning network is going to end up being a high speed, high frequency, lower value settlement network that will stitch together 100,000 or 1 million websites or 1 million mobile apps. Or you could imagine everybody with a mobile app that has payments built in. At some point, they might go peer-to-peer. They won't do it on the base layer. They'll do it on an open protocol layer 2, most likely. And then there'll be like massive competition between Coinbase and Cash App and all the traders and the banks and the high frequency, traders and the next person running MasterCard or Visa. And they'll try to create these layer 3s. Mm-hmm. And they'll have a layer 3 protocol, and maybe Binance wants you to move it on Binance, and Visa wants you to move it on Visa, and Coinbase wants you to use their network, and Cash App, and then Microsoft and Apple Pay, and all these other tech networks. They'll be layer 3s, and if 1 billion people trust Apple, with their credit card, maybe 1 billion people will trust $10,000 worth of Bitcoin to Apple. And then maybe there'll be some successor to Apple, right? Like Tesla bot or something. So I think that there'll be a huge amount of transactions, billions and billions of transactions a day, probably billions an hour on the layer 3s, probably billions a day on the layer 2s. And then you're going to have the same number of transactions, on the layer 1, far fewer. And those will be $100 million, $1 billion type settlements, between the mega institutions. And I think you'll probably see Bitcoin security and Bitcoin credit type ideas built into a lot of financial and technical applications. And there'll be new applications, new use cases that we can't even conceive of right now, that will maybe for cybersecurity or social security or something else that will grease the wheels of digital commerce.
Michael Saylor highlights one of the most powerful shifts happening in Bitcoin today, the rise of Bitcoin-backed equity and credit. He explains that global equity and credit markets together represent over $100 trillion, and as companies begin to recapitalize on Bitcoin, billions of dollars could start moving each week. This isn't just about public corporations. It extends to private businesses and institutions worldwide, creating the potential for rapid, exponential growth. What makes this moment so striking, Saylor says, is that even many long-time crypto veterans are overlooking it. While they focus on chasing new technical innovations, they're missing the deeper transformation, Bitcoin becoming the foundation of wealth storage and financial markets. He acknowledges that technical advances will play a role, such as Bitcoin powering global payments through the Lightning Network, or serving as the backbone for identity and authentication systems. But these are longer-term bets with uncertain outcomes. The real, immediate revolution is monetary. Bitcoin as digital capital, securitized and integrated across markets. This shift alone could turn struggling companies into billion-dollar enterprises almost overnight. For Saylor, the message is clear. The technical breakthroughs will come, but it's Bitcoin's role in transforming capital markets that is already reshaping the world, and that's where the biggest opportunity lies today.
Speaking of kind of new use cases, things on the bleeding edge of Bitcoin, is there anything right now that to you really stands out that you're particularly excited about, that maybe people aren't super well versed in and familiar with? And on the opposite side of that coin, is there anything in the development in and around Bitcoin that you think proposes a potential threat or that you're worried about?
I think the most exciting thing going on right now is the issuance of BTC-backed equity and the issuance of BTC-backed credit. Because, you're talking about $100 trillion of equity and credit that's discretionary. So, so if I were to say every public company should recapitalize on Bitcoin, that would be a start, but that would be an understatement, because I didn't include the 400 million private companies, did I? And I didn't include every institutional holder of any capital. So I think that that's a very powerful dynamic, and once that starts, that burns 100 million a week per company, a billion, that can burn billions, and that could be billions of dollars a week. And and the same with BTC-backed credit. If you look at all the credit instruments, all the preferred stocks, all of the fixed income, all the annuities, all the corporate bonds, all the high yield bonds, the junk bonds, all the investment grade bonds, all that huge amounts, it's all going to be recapitalized or reconstructed on a Bitcoin standard that's bigger than the equity. And so I think that there's a digital transformation of the capital markets going on right now, and it's profound. And what it means is a company like Metaplanet can go from being worth 10 million to being potentially worth 10 billion in a couple of years. So show me a better idea. How do you go from 10 million to 10 billion in 24 months or 36 months? It's not very common. So I really think that's the part that's underappreciated. I mean, people in the business staring at it, like literally most of the crypto OGs that have been in the business for 15 years are staring right at the thing and ignoring it or rejecting it as it's happening. Right? That's the irony to me. So, and I think that's because, again, their metaphor is they're looking for some technical widget to create instead of reconceiving the way that wealth is stored. If you're looking for the technical ideas are just harder. They take a lot more work. I mean, eventually you would think that Bitcoin is the basis for all payments, via something like the Lightning protocol. And so clearly the Internet of Money, that's a cool idea. It's a lot of work. It's going to take a while. And then I think Bitcoin is the basis of all identity and authentication. It's another interesting technical idea. Presumably public-private key cryptography on a Bitcoin network. It ought to replace most of the forms of authentication and identity and verification in the world. So I think that those are two technical dynamics that are operating, but on the other hand, if you launch 100 companies with those two ideas, 99 out of 100 are going to struggle, and one will achieve something maybe, whereas I can take a dying hotel or a dying restaurant chain and I can make it worth $1 billion just using Bitcoin as digital capital. And on the margin, it's more likely to work than not. And so I think that the really big compelling ideas are the monetary ideas, or the financialization of Bitcoin, the securitization of the network. I think the technical ideas will probably come later. They will come. They're coming. David Marcus is doing a great job, with Spark, and Light Spark. I think it's very interesting, and they're having good progress, and I think we'll see a lot more things like that. But those are a little bit more difficult to forecast because of the vagaries of technology entrepreneurship.
Michael Saylor shows us that Bitcoin is no longer on the sidelines. It is moving to the very center of global finance. The rise of Bitcoin-backed equity and credit marks the beginning of a profound shift in how wealth is stored and capital is raised. At the same time, the potential for Bitcoin to power payments, identity, and authentication highlights just how deeply it could integrate into our daily lives. This isn't a distant future, it's happening right now. Companies, institutions, and entire markets are already being reshaped on a Bitcoin standard. And as Saylor points out, those who recognize this transformation early stand to benefit the most, while many others risk missing the opportunity unfolding in front of them. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments section below.